haven't gotten to the end of the line here yet. This is indeed a wonderful day, and if you look at your bulletin, you'll see I have 6 steps to your greater life, and God added 1 this morning, so it's 7. You know, I never really know how these sermons are going to turn out. I mean, sometimes I'm here working very hard on Saturday night, and then Sunday morning comes, and something says throw the whole thing out and start again. And it's one of those nights and one of those mornings. So I'm going to present to you this morning 7 steps to your greater life. I think a good place to start is for us to realize that everything that you have demonstrated in your life has been the result of your meditation. Life is indeed a great meditation. I think the image that comes strikingly to mind for me is that of the Hindu god Vishnu and Brahma. And Vishnu is the sleeping god. And Brahma is the god, the creative god, the creator god. And it is said that Brahma is nestled on in a what do you call that thing? I can't remember the word. It's the flower that is in the pond. What is that? The lily pond. Right? The lily pond. And Brahma opens his eyes, and a world comes into being, closes his eyes, and a world goes out of being. And what we need to understand is that that's exactly what we do. There is a tremendous potential in all of us, which is really God's potential in us, limitless. And it is asleep until the conscious mind awakens, which is like Brahma. So there's the subconscious that's there. And then there's the conscious mind. And when the conscious mind is awakened to its possibilities, it really doesn't matter what the limitations have been. Once you awaken to these possibilities within yourself, a new world comes into being. But when you cannot see your possibilities, it's like closing your eyes, Brahma closing his eyes, and the world, the possible world for you, goes out of being. And so it is really vital for you to understand that the life that you're living is the result of your meditation. And people may ask, but I don't even know how to meditate. It's like saying, I don't know how to breathe right. If you spend time with a singer or an athlete or a swimmer, you'll find that their breathing is different from yours and mine. Because we have this shallow breathing. We never had to really use our breath the way it can be used. And similarly, meditating, if you've never practiced the art of meditation, then you won't know how to specifically attune yourself to this power in the most effective way. And yet, you are still doing it, but not too effectively. Sometimes you're on, sometimes you're on. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. But whatever it is that you are demonstrating in your life is nothing but the great meditation that you're making. And if you don't like what you have been demonstrating, you can change your meditation. You can change what it is that you rest your mind on. And when you do, something will change profoundly in your life. Now, Dr. Holmes admired the great mystic Plotinus. And Plotinus was one of these mystics that brought about what Ernest Holmes quoted as what religious science is, the correlation of the laws of science, the inspiration of religion and the application to human needs and aspirations. And what happens here is that Plotinus said there are three ways in which we accumulate knowledge: through science, through inspiration, and through the application that we give of everyday principles. So what I want to say here is Plotinus also was able to state something that is an image of what we're trying to do. He says man is poised midway between the gods and the beast. When you're midway between the gods and the beast, it means you're living in a very active consciousness of good and bad, of pairs of opposites. When you're living more like the beast, you're totally in that realm. But when you're living like the gods, you're living more closely to your oneness, to your power, and to the meditation or prayer that can bring forth into your life the things that you desire. So much so is it being found out by successful people today that meditation is of vital importance, that Ariana Huffington described our early morning yoga and meditation as her two joy triggers. And what she says is that she does these things every day. And what it does is more than simply bring greater health and a sense of peace to her. She said it's good for the bottom line. Because when she is in her business discussion, she is in a zone, a realm, that is in touch with something greater. And so the bottom line that we're seeking is also being found out to be part of the practice, the active practice of meditation. These are people who are looking for something effective. Stress reduction is also important, because you can't be your best if you're stressed out all the time. There's something in you, no matter how stressful the situation is, there's something in you that can be calm. So, can you meditate? Yes, you can. Sometimes badly, sometimes well. Badly if you've never taken the time to practice meditation, which we do every Wednesday night. And very good if you practice it, and then when you are in that place of confrontation and issues of your life, you can center yourself into that meditation. And you can find that peace that passes all understanding, coming forth from the wisdom of the things that you will say in those moments. So fundamentally, we were talking about thinking. Meditation is a form of thinking. Well, not thinking of everything. Thinking more in terms that is centered in love. As Jesus said, the great commandment that we have from the Mosaic commandments is love. Love of God and love of neighbor and yourself. Why? Because there is a relationship between that love that is within you and what love does outside of you. The love within you brings forth and calls forth the greatness that is in you. But not just for your sake, not just for your ego. It calls for it because it has to do with how you can share with the community, how you can share with others, because you're always benefiting by what others are sharing. It's a mutually related thing, so that we have to do this together. We have to realize that you give your best, you give your talents, and I give my best, I give my talents. That's the way life works. And Jesus called this love. And it is love. Ernesto says, love is the self-givingness of God to its creation. And so what would the image of God be in you if your love is not your self-givingness to God's creation? It's the same thing. And we are beginning to find that the ones who can come from that spiritual center within himself or herself can do this best. When we begin to understand the nature of what it is to meditate, we can understand Ernest Holmes' change your thinking, change your life. It's the same as change your meditation, change your life. It's the same as William James saying, one of the greatest discoveries of my generation is that a man may alter his life by altering his thinking. It's the same thing, just different words. And so when you come to Founders and you find that you spend time in prayer and meditation, you're doing that. And you need to take these skills with you so you practice them daily in terms of the trials and tribulations that you have. But if you're going to have a great life, and a great life doesn't mean that you have to be in the history book. It means that you're living the best way for you that you can live. That's what a great life is. Then you must clarify your purpose. That's my second principle. You must clarify your purpose. Because greatness demands a what from you. What are you talking about? God cannot give to you what you won't take, Ernest Holmes says. What does that mean? It means if you're not open to the gift that you are given, it's like you didn't get it. And because you didn't accept it, you're not able to demonstrate it. So you must be clear about what it is that you want with your life. This is again the same image of Brahma opening his eyes and the world comes into being. What are you opening your eyes to now? It doesn't matter what stage of your life you're in. The question is, the only thing you have is time. That's the only thing you ever had from you were a little baby until now. So don't get to a point where you're like, well, you know, my life. No, your life hasn't passed. You're here. And between here and there, wherever there is, there are things to do, things to be, things to be expressed. And this is the opportunity for it. Every single moment is that opportunity for you to do this. When Benjamin Franklin was 10 years old, his parents felt that they could not afford to pay any more for an education. And what was the thing that Benjamin Franklin wanted most? At that time it was an education. And so young Franklin was clear in his purpose. And he went studying ferociously everything he could get his hand on. And later on, it was he who invented the lightning rod and bifocals and became one of America's founding fathers. You could say of somebody like that greatness was not for him. There were not enough opportunities. He couldn't do what he needed to do. And you could just settle into, oh, poor me. I'm victimized by my circumstance. You're never victimized by your circumstance as much as you're victimized by your acceptance of your circumstance. By what kind of mind you bring to bear upon the challenges that you have in your life. And this is where we are right now. Wherever you are in your life, this is where you stand. And this is where you recognize that education was the great eye-opening activity in Benjamin Franklin's life. What is it that you need to open your eyes to? That's your purpose. Now, he went from that initial purpose to, of course, being one of the great men in the world. You have the same principle working for you. There was clarity of mind. And when you know clearly what your purpose is, you find that things begin to change in your life. One of the ways things change in your life is Jesus is mentioning, "Oh, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." The meek means the teachable. It means people are still open to learn. You don't get to a place where you have a closed mind about everything. You don't get locked up into what would be our prejudices, and we all have them. You begin to allow yourself to open up to these possibilities wherever you are. So blessed are the meek. They will inherit the earth. So, whatever you bind in heaven, you will bind on earth. That's one of the scriptural passages. And heaven means whatever you accept as your limitation or as your opportunity inside yourself will be displayed in the way you live your life and how things unfold in your life. I can never talk about purpose without coming to Patanjali's, the great yoga master's first aphorism, when he said, when you're inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitation. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new, great and wonderful world. Do you see the shift? A new, great and wonderful world. But here is the sweet part. He says, dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive. That's Vishnu sleeping, the God, sleeping God. They now become alive. That is Brahma. Using these images of thought that the ancient Hindus had. They come alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed to be. Look at the three elements here. First, you get inspired. Thoughts break their bonds. Mind transcends limitation. Consciousness expands in every direction. Inspiration. Okay? The second thing is change. You find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive. You see the change taking place? That's what your meditation is doing when you meditate with purpose and clarity. And the third thing is the discovery, I should say, and transformation for your demonstration. You have to change inside to change outside. If you never change inside, you won't change outside. And no matter how we complain about what is happening outside, it always begins with a change inside of each one of us individually. My third principle is creation is for community. And it is reconciling heaven and earth. You all remember Judy Garland, yes? Yes. Of course. She says, always be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else. You like that? Yes. It's not a comparison between you and somebody else. Well, I have to be just as good as, and you fill in the blank. That's not what it is. It may start out seeming that way. But as you become more spiritual and mature, you realize it was never about the next person. It was about your potential and your ability to bring it out to the extent that you can. And so, what happens is that when we link your clear purpose with your talent and the needs in community, you have really a covenant relationship. The covenant relationship between you and the other. Between God and the folks. Who will I send? God asked in Isaiah to send me. We are the emissaries of that powerful God that is within each one of us. And what we bring is our talents and our gifts. And we should bring them with joy and love and all that good stuff. Would there be an Alexander the Great if there wasn't an army? Who would Alexander be? There's nobody behind him. Where's Alexander without his army? Would there be a Michelangelo without the Catholic Church and the Pope and the Sistine Chapel, what would he be painting? What would he be sculpting? What I'm saying is, we're not isolated entities. We're a community, and we need each other. And we must see that. Would there be a Martin Luther King without the Civil Rights Challenge? Martin Luther King Jr., I should say. Would there be a Steve Jobs without customers for Apple products? So this guy can demonstrate and invent all kinds of good computer ideas, and then he's sitting by himself. And there's no one to buy them. We need each other. The greatness within you will become magnetized when you understand why it is there. Because you are in the image and likeness of God, and therefore you must act in that redemptive way. Not to bring people down, but to help to bring people up. That's what redemption is. To lift your community, to lift yourself by lifting others. To understand that you never got here by yourself. That you're not an individual out there in the planet by yourself. That everything you ate this morning is something that somebody had something to do with. Not just you. And once we begin to understand that connection, then the spiritual aspect of it becomes even clearer. That there is one life, it's God's life, it's your life, it's my life, it's life we're all living now. So why don't we live it as if it matters that I love my neighbor as myself, even as I love my God? It was Jesus who said, what's the purpose in saying you love God and hate your neighbor? First, go and love your brother whom you can see, and then love your God whom you cannot see. We need to understand how it is that creation is for community. A reconciling of heaven with earth. That's what you're doing when you give what you give. Last night when we were there and participating in that aspect of our church that we don't really see here up here on Sundays, but our cultural aspect, because we are a little bit separated by language. But there was no separation last night. Everybody was enjoying everybody. And we had such a good time. And that's what community is. And so when John writes in his gospel that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, you must understand that that son or daughter is you. God is forever, as Eckhart says, Meister Eckhart says, is forever giving the only begotten. And you are that person. You have that greatness. My fourth principle is, process is principle in action. Now we talk about right action in the science of mind. Action can only occur in the duration of time. I've already mentioned that time is all you have. So when you waste your time, you waste your life. And if you don't have a clear purpose, you're going to waste a lot of time. When you know what your clear purpose is, you don't waste time. You find ways to enjoy your life, even as the work may be hard, but hard doesn't mean anything to you because you are engaged and you're energized and you've got to do something with all this genius that is within you. You can't just sit back and lie on the couch and watch the Lakers. You have to do something more than that. You have to get involved. You have to find the ways in which you can make life better. That's what you do. And it is through principle, but process is principle in action. You say you're applying a principle. What do you mean applying? If you're planting a seed, what do you mean by applying? You're putting a seed in the ground. Do you expect, like Jack and the Beanstalk, for it to just grow up immediately? No. It takes time. So, sometimes we have health problems, and we do the prayer work. I'm not saying how much time healing should take. I'm not even saying the way healing should come. So you still go to the doctor, and the doctor treats you with medication. It's part of the prayer. It's part of the prayer. It's not, gee, I speak my word over here, and suddenly, magically, everything is whole, perfect, and complete just because I've said that. I've said that because I want to be in a consciousness that leads to the expression of that. And whatever time is the time that it takes, and the time that consciousness is working for you. You know, the summer will come, and the spring will come, and the autumn will come, and the winter will come, but they come in their sequence. And your prayer is not going to change the sequence in which they come. And so if you know you're going to want your crop to be planted, you plant it in the spring. And by the summer you're full growth, and by autumn you're reaping. And if you do not recognize the way life works, just because you'll say, well, I'm praying, so therefore I should get instant fruits, I don't think you're going to get very far in your life. Your greatness is working in what is, how life works. The principle and how it works. Principle works through process. So recognize time. Recognize that time is of the essence. Recognize that time is important. Time is all we have. And when we run out of it, as far as this life is concerned, it's over. If you don't rule your time, you'll ruin your life. If you don't rule your time, you'll ruin your life. My fifth principle is miracles are not simply Bible stories. They are mind stories. They're not simply Bible stories. In the Bible, everything happened instantaneously. In the mind, everything can happen instantaneously. And we have to get it right in the mind for us to get it right in life. When you do your prayer work, you must realize that we're accepting now, in this moment in mind, the reality that we seek. But the reality, in terms of actuality, needs time to unfold. No one is going to ever go and pray that I want to instantly experience all the good of my life, and then I'll just make angry. I've never heard a prayer like that. Because the experience is how the unfoldment comes over time. And we go to people with experience and we say, tell me about it. Why? Because that is where you live. Life is what it does. And you can't do without time. You do in time. There's a lot of emphasis on the present moment, and I'll come back to that. But what I want you to understand is that the stories, the Bible stories, are mind stories. They are mind stories. We will never see anyone who will say to a river, part and I'll walk across. But we will always see people with obstacles that seem impossible for them to traverse. Like walking on water, and we'll say, that's what walking on water is. That's what part of the Red Sea is. To recognize that despite what seemed to be the impossible dream, it can be accomplished. And you can do it. That's what the stories are telling us about. It doesn't mean that you have to go out there and walk on water to prove your faith. Your faith must be proven in accepting that you can do that in consciousness. And then consciousness is metaphoric, is symbolic of what you need to do in real life. And then you learn how to apply the principle to real life. So you have to go to the doctor to get some cure? Go to the doctor to get some cure. If you can speak a word on some things and it happens right then, accept that that can happen right then. But my point is, don't limit God as to how the healing is going to take place. Don't limit God. Because all knowledge is God's knowledge. When you want to go to New York, you don't just affirm that I'm in New York now and you're there. You go get a plane, you pay for the ticket, and you go. When you want to come to Founders, you get into a car or bus or however you get here, and you don't just stand by your doorstep and say, well, let me do my prayer work now, and I'll be right there. No, you're not going to be right there. You must understand that it's the prayer work of all the people, the meditation of all the people, that have brought all these things into our experiences. And what we must learn to do is to know when to use them and when to simply know in faith that something can be healed right when we're there. And when we understand that the process is part of the principle, then you'll understand how to get healed more quickly. My sixth principle is we're limited far more by our beliefs than our circumstances. Lack of limitation are really a problem of belief. Yes, I know when you're not having what you need, when you're homeless, when you don't have enough food, when you're fired from your job, oh, that is really tough. But if we're going to move from where we are to where we wish to be, it's always going to be whether you are willing to understand that it begins with your thought. It begins with your belief that I have a way of knowing that in spite of how bad my circumstance may be right now, just as Ben Franklin, that I will find a way. And once you have that conviction, that faith that you will find a way, suddenly ways begin to open up that you could not have thought about. Remember what I read about Pat and Jack, and all the things that start, dormant forces, faculties, begin to, and forces start coming through for you. Where did they come from? They came from the fact that when you apply your belief in a particular way, pathways open up for you. And your life is changed. You're not limited by your circumstance. But we must practice our belief, practice our faith. My final principle is live each day in joy and gratitude for your life. It is Psalm 118:24, which says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." We will, I'm thinking that it might be a good day to rejoice and be glad. No! It's a commitment. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Now, there is a coach called Lou Holtz. Some of you who know about football know about this. He makes a comment on people who like to complain. Do you find yourself a complainer? You're always complaining about something? I mean, I'm not talking about every now and then to complain about a little thing, or if you got a bad product, you go and, to the store and say, look, this is not acceptable. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who complain about everything incessantly. We don't have them in abundance. I think we have sent all of them away. Here's Lou Holtz. He says, the man who complains about how the ball bounces is likely to be the one who dropped it. Yeah. You will find that complaints don't really solve your problem. They don't change anything. They just simply come as an excuse for you to feel that you should stay in your negativity and justify it. I told you that those kind of people always do this, right? Those kind of people who look that way always are doing that. When you come into the CIA, you got to watch what you're declaring. If you're going to be great, when your presence comes into an area that is trouble, you must understand that the bad man is the good man's job. That the problem is the opportunity for the redeemer. For the ones who bring a fresh perspective. For the ones who understand that greatness has to do with openness and meekness, to learn how to be more harmonious and more effective in a particular community. This is where we all are right now. I think I'm done with my talk, except for one thing. There is one quote that I really like, and I can't find it. And I want to share that with you before I sit down, but I may not be able to share it. Let me see if I can remember. There's an old Chinese saying that the question comes up, when is the best time to plant a forest? And it would say, like 2 years ago. But the only time you have to plant a forest is right now. And so this becomes the best time. The best time to do anything was sometime in the past. All of us have been there, yes? That I wish I knew then what I know now. How many of you said that? Yeah, we've all said that. But stop wishing about it. You know now what you know now. And so then is now. Don't make then becomes a problem when 2 weeks or 2 years go by and you say, no, I wish, because you know it. And so if you know it, do it. I'm inviting you to your greatness. I'm inviting you to stop accepting your ordinariness. Rise above it and be the person God intended you to be. God bless you all. Thank you very much.